The abortion experience can produce very strong emotions, so strong that it's quite natural to wish to avoid or mask those emotions. And this is often done by, denying or suppressing. People push down the emotions, and it may work for a while. The common presentation of abortion trauma can be 5 to 10 years from the date of the abortion. And so while the continued refusal to face the emotion surrounding the abortion loss may enable a person to exist for a period of time, it may also just lead to more difficulties and pain in the long term to the mental, physical and emotional health and well-being. As they say, healing is a feeling, and grief is a natural response to trauma, and grief needs to be grieved. Abortion is a death experience for many. It represents a significant loss in a person's life, and we need to identify and acknowledge and accept those losses because it's really important to the healing. Abortion grief is a complicated grief. It's often called a disenfranchised grief, so that has the meaning that it doesn't fit with the wider community's attitudes or opinion towards death and loss. And this means that for those suffering abortion grief, they often feel their grief is generally unacknowledged, they're isolated, and they're unable to share their pain and their grief and what they're experiencing. And so with that as your starting point, you think, well, how do we start this journey from grief to healing? And I think it's really important to note up front in the healing journey that the abortion experience for many to date has been one of isolation and dehumanisation. The politics alone make it so. A core part of the healing process is actually rehumanisation. Rehumanisation of the woman, rehumanisation of the unborn. And unfortunately, politics can be very dehumanising. And so with very deep wounds, one needs to be in a safe place to explore and to be on that journey of healing with some hope. So we need to stay out of politics is the upfront thing to remember, because politics tends to undermine the wounded person's hope, and it's very, very counterproductive to the healing journey. So where to start the journey? I suppose we started at step 1, which is overcoming the denial and the isolation. We're moving away from or releasing that very tight grip on a protective mechanism or safety belt, if you will, called denial. And denial that there's been a loss, denial that loss was significant. And this isn't going to be easy because it's getting in touch with head to heart, so it can be extremely painful for people. But what we do at the beginning and all the way through is that we just continue to focus on the importance of hope. There's always hope in healing and that wholeness and that ability to find joy in life, in living again. So we just remember what Dr. David Reardon, a specialist in the area of abortion trauma, often says, don't go it alone, dare to share. And so in letting go of that denial as our first step, we move to step 2. So we revisit the experience and we start to work through the feelings of the abortion experience. And this takes it takes time to think about the abortion experience, to give yourself permission to explore the feelings that might be trapped inside. It's deeply sensitive place to explore pain, because those suffering need to be listened to, they need to be validated, and they need to have their loss validated. And through that, we're just remembering, the importance of rehumanisation in the healing journey, rehumanisation of self and rehumanisation of the unborn. During this stage, it helps to read stories, do a little bit of investigation about abortion grief, about abortion trauma, so that you're armed to walk into the next stage, because it's all too true that, you have to say hello before you can say goodbye. And so we then step into stage 3, which is the rehumanisation of self. When people tell their story, it's often the first time that they've heard it. And somebody told me that a crisis line counsellor many years ago, and it's all too true. Listening and watching somebody explore that story for the first time, and recognising themselves in it. So it's really important to connect the suffering voice with the listening ear. Explore the abortion decision. They're often crisis decisions, and be very sensitive to that. There's many feelings and emotions to work through. A lot was going on, rejection, shock, abandonment, loss of confidence, fear of a loss of a relationship, fear for children, other children that they might have because of economic or medical situations that they were going through. Take time to think and to cry and to explore, allowing yourself or the person to express their feelings in a very safe place, and just always focusing on that hope. Just listening to somebody is validating them, and validating a person is rehumanising. You're giving them back their dignity, their human dignity, their womanhood, their motherhood. So in the process of exploring, she is reclaiming her lost voice, and she is getting the courage and the strength to continue the healing journey. So she's now faced herself, and in step 4, we're rehumanising the unborn. So she goes to face her unborn. And we do this very gently, we do this very patiently, remembering that we always speak and act as you would to any parent who has lost a child. You might start with, do you think it was a boy or a girl? 99% of the time, they'll know, boy, girl. Do you have a name? Again, undeniably, in my experience, 99% of the time they'll have a name for you. And then it may or it may not be appropriate to calculate their age, or maybe, the person wants to explore that and share that with you. So you have humanised the unborn. They have humanised their unborn. And so now this next step is connecting to the unborn. It's not uncommon to hear things like, you might say to somebody, what would you like to say to them? And in this connection stage, they might say, well, I just want them to know that I wanted them, or I just want them to know that I didn't want to get rid of them. I just want them to know that I do think about them all the time. And just having that permission to connect with the unborn in a way, it's so healing for the person who's suffering. So in steps 3, the rehumanisation of self, and 4, the rehumanisation of the unborn, we see the woman, really empowered to share her story and to validate her loss, which was real and significant. And then also to humanise her loss. and the woman has been able to give, she's been able to give her loss some meaning. You know, it's got substance, form, if you will. She has said hello to her unborn, and that is a wonderful healing stage for the woman. But, you know, by no means are we towards the end. We're just in the middle. So what we're doing is we're moving now towards the stages of healing that is referred to as letting go. Step 5, which was the delegation of responsibility. And this involves 2 parts. You know, it takes time and perspective to explore delegating responsibility. It requires a bit of emotional maturity and a great deal of personal courage and personal self-honesty as well. You know, there's many factors that were going on externally and internally around the abortion decision that led then to the abortion experience, and this step that we call delegation of responsibility also requires accepting responsibility. So the first part is the acceptance of one's own humanness and also one's involvement in the abortion experience. And then the second part being that delegation of responsibility. So you have the internal, and now you have the external. So you have, you know, what was going on around the decision. There was a father, parents, friends, partners, health professionals is something very commonly brought up by post-abortive sufferers, counsellors. In this stage, there's, you know, when they're peeling back the young, you know, we see a lot of betrayal that the women feel as part of the abortion process. So that betrayal by a seemingly unsupportive partner, betrayal of medical professionals that were telling them that this is healthcare, and betrayal by the community, which then naturally moulds into step 6, which is your forgiveness stage. The delegation stage helps to, if you will, explore and restore clarity and honesty about what happened with the abortion experience. That honesty leads to a forgiveness, the forgiveness of self and the forgiveness of others. And it can be really quite difficult to unpack, but confronting that reality of self and confronting that reality of others really does help to find forgiveness. They might not others might not necessarily ever be aware of it, but working through it with somebody and enabling them to delegate that does help their journey of forgiveness. We can only walk through forgiveness if we're going to reach step 7, which is acceptance. Because acceptance is that stage that moves a person who has been suffering sometimes for such a long period of time out of denial. That protective mechanism of denial is no longer necessary for the person to exist, because they're learning to integrate the grief and the trauma into their daily life and move forward. As you do integrate many forms of trauma and grief into your daily life, there are different ways to do this at the acceptance stage, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, obviously. Some people participate in rituals or healing services. Others participate in support services that might help other people who are suffering from abortion, grief or trauma to heal on their journey. And so, you know, whatever it is, the steps towards healing and wholeness and that general joy in life again will be whole once you complete the stage of acceptance, because that takes you to, I suppose, I don't know if you would call it a stage, but step 8, which is letting go. And as Vincent Roux aptly stated, that, you know, healing from abortion grief is really about helping to reconnect with a lost child, and this reunion is the ultimate goal and the ultimate healing for those who are suffering from abortion trauma, with the healing steps in mind that we've just gone through, these 8 steps. You know, the journey from grief to healing after an abortion experience for yourself or for others should hopefully be one of hope and empowerment. And we wish you all the best.